Hi, welcome back to my channel, Beautiful Minutia. If you're new here, my name is Tiffany, and welcome to another summer weekly reading vlog. I actually didn't have a vlog last week. I started it, and then we started school, and then I got really sick. And so it's so unfair. That's one of the perks of homeschooling, is that I'm supposed to be able to avoid back to school germs. And what happens the first week of school? I get like super sick. And my husband is still extremely sick. I'm like coming out of it and he's not yet. So it just feels very unfair. But I thought about using my clip from last week to introduce, what I was reading, but I'm still working on the same stuff. So I figured I would just restart it. I've only finished like one book so far this month. So my reading has not been spectacular because I've been too sick to read. So I'm going to give you an update on what I've been reading and what I'm planning on starting this week. So I'm reading Scaramouche by Raphael Sabatini. I'm reading this with my friend Katie from Paperbacks and Ponytails. And I'm about 70% through this book now. And it was kind of like what I could see of like the cover and like brief descriptions sounded very like swashbuckling. And there has been no swashbuckling so far. And I'm 70% of the way through. So it's very interesting. So it starts out with this young man who is upset because his friend has been like wrongfully killed in a duel. He was kind of provoked into this duel because the person knew it would make him angry, and it was a way for them to get this guy out of the way who is pointing out all these inequalities between the rich and the poor. And this is before, I think, or around the time of like the French Revolution or something like that. And so there's like uprisings that are starting to happen, and so they want to silence the main character's friend. And like I said, the friend gets killed in this duel. And so Andre Louis, the main character, is like, I will become his voice and I will say the things that he's saying. And it's weird though, because he gives this impassioned speech, but he doesn't even really believe it. He's just like, he feels like it's his duty to do that, to avenge his friend, which is just really strange. I didn't really like the first part of the book that much. I was having a hard time following some of it. Part of it is that I was reading it at night and I was very tired and I was just kind of like blanking out. I really liked part 2 of the book. I'm now on part 3. I don't think it's spoilery to tell you the first part of act 2 or part 2, whatever, because it actually is like mentioned in the description of the book. I looked. So Andre Louis ends up with this acting troupe, and he kind of ends up with them by accident because he's hiding from the law. And the way that he ends up with them is just like really funny. The scene is funny, and I found his interactions with them to be much more enjoyable than the book had been so far. But it's just a weird thing, because I was telling Katie that I can't gauge the sincerity of Andre Louis in anything at all. I just can't. He just doesn't seem like a very sincere person. And it feels like this is going to be leading to some sort of big swashbuckling thing, and I feel like we're supposed to be rooting for and on the side of Andre Louis. But because he doesn't feel very sincere, I can't really root for him. I kind of don't really care what happens to him all that much, to be honest. I feel like this is a much more plot-driven book than a character-driven book, and I'm much more of a character-driven reader, because the plot can be interesting, but if I don't care about the characters, then I don't care what happens to them as much. And that's kind of how I feel about this one so far. Like, it's okay, it's entertaining in parts, but I don't know how I feel. We'll see if the ending kind of like wows me, but I'm not really sure. Hopefully I will finish it by the end of this week. I had hoped to finish it last week, and that just didn't happen. I did finally find an audiobook version, and that has really helped me. So I've been listening to it when I've been doing cleaning or catching up on things. Sorry, it's a mite breezy out here, so hopefully it's not too breezy. Anyways, I'm also still reading Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson. I also hope to finish this by the end of last week. Why did I think I could finish a 1,300-page book in 2 weeks when I'm reading other books, when I'm starting school, when I'm planning a birthday party for my daughter? Like, why did I think I would be able to finish it in that short amount of time? I don't know. I am nothing if not optimistic about my reading. But I am a third of the way through. I finally hit the third point, like where I was like 34% of the way through. I am mostly reading this on my Kindle, actually, because then I can read it in bed, because this is hard to read in bed because it's giant. I'm enjoying this. like a lot more than I was expecting to, because for a lot of people, they say Oathbringer is their least favorite of the Stormlight Archive. But because I'm reading this so close to Words of Radiance, I don't feel as lost as I did with Words of Radiance or Way of Kings, because I just waited too long in between those two books. I don't have too much to say about it. I do want to say something, and this is just a little spoilery, so I do have timestamps in the description, so just go ahead and skip to the next book if you have not read Oathbringer or any of the Stormlight Archives. Just go ahead and skip that next little section. So I am so annoyed by Shallan, and I know a lot of people are annoyed by Shallan the whole series, but Shallan really didn't irritate me that much in Way of Kings or Words of Radiance, mostly because I just felt like, you know, she's this lost, traumatized little girl who's done some bad things, yeah, but like very abused girl, and like I just am frustrated with her because she's a Radiant now, like, and she's acting like she is so mature and she's figured things out, but she's split her responsibilities into these 3 separate personas, and it's driving me crazy because she's saying things like, well, I didn't do that, Vale did that, or I didn't do that because I'm Radiant right now and Shallan did that. And I'm like, you can't like lie to yourself and shirk responsibilities and pretend that you're mature at the same time, because you are not, and it's just driving me crazy, and I really want Yasna to slap some sense into this girl. I'm really excited that Yasna's back. I called it. When she died in Words of Radiance, I was like, she's not really dead. I know she's not, and I don't know how I knew that. I just suspected she was not really dead, and when she came back at the end of Words of Radiance, I'm like, yes, I knew it. I called it. So now that Yasna is actually here with them, I really want her to straighten Shallan out, because she's driving me crazy. And Shallan has driven Whitney crazy for like this whole series. I'm reading this with my friend Whitney, and she drives a lot of people crazy. And she didn't drive me crazy. I loved her scenes in the last 2 books because I thought her power was way cooler than Kaladin's. Like, Kaladin's like flying in the sky, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. I like the illusionary stuff and the Shadesmar and like the soul casting and all that kind of stuff. I thought that was way more interesting than Kaladin's powers. So, but now I'm just like, girl. I have a couple other things that I'm planning on starting this week. I should be reading more than I'm reading in terms of like the books I should be reading. So I have like 3 books for 3 different book clubs that I need to read by the end of the month, and I haven't started any of them, but I'm hoping if I finish Scaramouche and Oathbringer by the end of the week that I can move on to those things. But the books that I am planning on starting today are Cry the Beloved Country. This is set in South Africa, and it's actually on my classics TBR for the year because I'm trying to read translated works or works from other countries and other continents that are classics this year. So this is one of the books that is on my list. I have actually started this. I'm 2 chapters into it. I'm not really loving it so far. The writing's weird. The writing style is weird, and I just need to settle into that. I liked the first chapter. It was very descriptive of the land, but then dialogue is written so weird. Can you see this? Like, so each person, just like a dash and like what they're saying. No quotation marks, not like he said or she replied or, you know, whatever. And when it does say he said, she said, it literally only uses the word said, and it never is like replied or any other word other than said. So it was feeling like very fragmented and very repetitive, and so I didn't really enjoy it. But I'm only 2 chapters in. That's 10 pages. I'm going to try to read 2 more pages today. I'm reading this with my friend Dia from Novel Idea, and we're going to try to read at the pace of 4 chapters a day. So I have hopes, you know, I have dreams, I have aspirations that once I adjust to the writing style, that it will get better for me. The other book that I am going to start today that I anticipate being a pretty quick read is Attack on Titan. This is volume 2. I did read volume 1 last month when I did Reading Like RM, and I have the first volumes of Attack on Titan, the first 4 volumes that I'm borrowing from a friend. And I read the first one and just wasn't expecting it to be as gory and horror driven as it was. And that for sure impacted my enjoyment level, but I'm not willing to toss this aside. I want to read at least 1 more volume now that I know what to expect, and then kind of go from there. So I'm reading this with Christy Lewis from Dostoevsky in Space, She's also read volume 1 and not continued on. So we're going to read volume 2 together. She said it's very gory so far. She already started. She started on Sunday and said she's going to read it a little bit more slowly in chunks. But I've heard such great things about like the character development and like exploration of ideas in this book, which is something that horror can do really well, is exploring like human nature and having discussions centered around things like that. But a lot of times the content of horror stops me. And this may be the same, but I'm going to give it one more volume, so I've given it a fair shake before I make a definitive decision. Because the first volume was well done, just a bit much. Anyway, those are my reading plans for this week. It's beautiful weather this week. It's going to be like in the 70s the next 2 days, and then the 80s the next couple of days after that. So I'm hoping to squeeze in some outside time, but it's also a super busy church week for us. So today is Tuesday, August 15th. Tomorrow we give food boxes away at our church, and Friday is like our monthly women's meeting that we have. So we like get together, eat a meal together, do a Bible study together, and do a game, and I prepare like the Bible study and the game. And so so there's that. And then also my daughter has a consultation with a piano teacher on Thursday, so there's that too. It's super windy all of a sudden. So yeah, it's gonna be a very busy week, and I am still very much tired and recovering. So we'll see how this week goes, but I'm looking forward to especially reading more of Oathbringer this week, and hopefully making some progress, and hopefully finishing some books.
So I have these begonias growing here, and birds have built a nest in it.
Hi, it is time for an update. It's Saturday, so I have gotten some reading done, so I'm just gonna update you as to where I am, but I unfortunately really have not finished very much. So I am like 85% of the way through Scaramouche, so I'm really close to the end of that one. So hoping to finish that one up soon. I was really hoping to finish it this week, but that just didn't happen. I'm kind of at the point where I'm not enjoying it as much anymore. I really felt like I kind of enjoyed the middle section when he was with the acting troupe. But we're coming to an end of the story, so I'm kind of interested to see how it shakes out. Again, I still just don't really find myself rooting for Andre Louis or feeling like he's really in the right all that much. So that kind of makes it kind of hard for me to care about his endeavors, especially when he's kind of moralizing and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, but do you really care? Because you still just feel like a very flippant person. Next up, Oathbringer. I have hit officially the halfway point. I'm on chapter 63, and so I'm really enjoying this. This is like my favorite thing I'm reading for sure right now. I'm loving it so much, but I guess it's just like the density of it in general, because it feels like I have been reading this for forever, because I have. I thought I could finish it in about 2 weeks, and I've been reading it for like 3 and I am still only halfway through, and it's just taking me like forever. So that's okay. I mean, it's worth it. It's worth the time that I'm putting into it, and I'm still just really enjoying it, finding some very interesting things within it, like the fact that we are now in like the capital city of Alethkar, so that's cool. That's a place we have not seen before, and I'm just really enjoying like the oath gates and opening up to different places and being able to see just different people experiencing different cultures and stuff, some of which we've caught glimpses of, which is really interesting because some of them we've seen in interludes, but also some of these characters we've seen in like Edge Dancer and, you know, some of the other little Stormlight adjacent things that I have read, and so that's really fun. I'm really enjoying that element quite a bit. Kind of waiting for us to get back to some people who had like a decent amount of interludes in previous books that we're just not seeing as much. I'm really kind of curious what's happening with them, but it has been really fun. We've had 2 interludes so far where I am in the book, and I'm actually enjoying the interludes in this book a whole lot more, and I'm feeling a lot less confused when we get to them. I'm still working my way through Cry the Beloved Country, doing pretty well in that, a little over halfway, and it's okay. I'm enjoying it all right. I don't feel like super impacted or emotionally invested in the story like I kind of thought that I would, because it's very like acclaimed and everything, but I mean, I'm liking it okay. I don't really jive with the writing style that much, and that is making it a little bit difficult for me, and I don't really feel emotionally attached to a lot of the characters. I feel like there are like moments of like beautifully put things, whether it's a description or just exploring an issue or someone's thought process or someone going through grief or things like that. There are moments where something is written in a really poignant way for me, but overall the book just feels like kind of disjointed. It does have a plot, and I realize that now because it's felt like it took a really long time for the plot to get going. It's essentially about this priest or minister who is going from the countryside to Johannesburg in search of his sister, because he's received a letter from a priest who lives in Johannesburg saying, hey, your sister's really sick, you need to come and help take care of her and all this kind of stuff. And so he goes there, and his son has also gone to Johannesburg in search of his sister, and he's never heard from his son again. People go to Johannesburg and you don't hear from them again. And so it's kind of his search for his sister and for his son and all of that kind of stuff. And so that's kind of where we're at in the story. There's been some other things that have happened that I feel like would be spoilery, so I don't really want to go into that. But overall, I do like it. I am intrigued by it, but we have like snatches of chapters and conversations that just feel very disconnected or written in a really strange way that I just, is just very different, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. I am still enjoying it though. Lastly, the one book I did finish is Attack on Titan, Volume 2. So read this with Christy, and we both really enjoyed it. We actually talked about it together when we had like a video call on Thursday, and we were talking about it, and I am so intrigued. Like, this ended in such a way, there was something that was happening, and in what was happening, I was kind of like, is this what's going on? And then it was what was going on. I don't want to be spoilery about it, but it's just really fascinating. I'm like, how does this work? And how did they accomplish this? I really want to know more. But they're discovering that some of the Titans aren't behaving or looking in the way that the Titans they've always experienced have. And so I think there's going to be some exploration of that in future books. I actually can't remember how many volumes there actually are in this. I was more prepared for like the horror and violence elements in this volume, so they weren't nearly as startling to me as the first book. And I think that just really helped me to enjoy it a lot more and not just be surprised, because I think I've mentioned before that typically when I'm going to manga, it's in between other books, and I'm going for a cozy feel, and this is not cozy. But the level of intensity in this one is fine. I think that as the series progresses, I could see them really trying to up the ante in terms of the intensity. So there is a possibility that at some point this will become too much for me, and that's okay if it gets to that point. For right now, I'm just enjoying it. Christy and I are going to try to read like a volume-ish a week. So we're just going to continue with this, and that's really fun because it's like going to be like a long running buddy read, which will be really, really fun because we haven't had very many one-on-one buddy reads this year. It just kind of hasn't worked out that way, though we've had a lot of group reads. So anyway, that is what I've been reading this week. A whole lot of progress without very much finishing. So you're just kind of getting play-by-play thoughts without a whole lot of resolution. Hopefully there will be more books finished next week and it will be a little bit more of a satisfying vlog. But let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of the books that I've read, what your thoughts are on that, and also I'd love to hear what you're currently reading. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please hit like and also subscribe so you can continue to see more bookish content from me, and I will see you again next time.